Experience Karen Hunter
in a completely different way.
Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me in Karen Hunter is Awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power, a 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. We are joined by a DNC co-chair, state rep from the great state of Pennsylvania, the 181st district. He was just on with Clay Kane and Reese Colbert at the town hall with Jasmine Crockett last week. The one and only Malcolm Kenyatta. Hello.
Karen Hunter. And I would say to the listeners, Karen does not like when I say that, so I always call her Dr. Hunter because I think she makes us smarter. So, you know.
All right. I'll let it go today.
We're
gonna have another.
The next episode, she can talk about like I told his ass don't do that.
Yeah, listen. Don't tell people my trade secrets. There's been a lot of little stirrings going on out there, and so I didn't want to ring in because I'm like, this feels weird. I'm seeing David Hogg out here saying some things I like, most things I'm like, sir, please go get you somebody that knows more than you. I know you're young. Then I saw you go on this thread, and then you came and did a video, Malcolm. So there's a story that says David Hogg is to be ousted from DNC following an investigations into his election as co-chair. What is it that we should know, and why should we care?
Yeah, so you know, unfortunately, I don't think that we should care, right? Because in this moment, right now, as you and I are talking, and you're my first interview about this, by the way, Republicans are down the street from where I am, cutting Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, so that they can do $3.5 billion of tax cuts for people who have private jets and yachts. I mean, it's really that simple, it's that serious, and it's that real. And that is what we should be talking about in a perfect world. But to the extent that we do have to talk about the machinations of parliamentary procedure within the Democratic Party, because that's in the news, my thread and my video was about making sure that if we're going to have that conversation, that we have it honestly. You know, we're in a position right now where David Hogg and I were both elected as vice chair of the DNC. And I want to, this is not about me, but I do want to highlight this point. I beat David Hogg in that election by a lot of votes, not a little votes, by a lot of votes. You needed 201 votes. I got 289 votes. David got 214 votes. But if you polled the average person and asked them, you know, who's the vice chair of the DNC, they would not be able to mention my name. They'd be able to mention his. And the reality of that is because he has gone on TV, gone on radio, gone on wherever, and told half-truths, and in some instances, outright lies about what has happened since we've been elected, about what he's doing, about what the party is doing. And it's really to our detriment. I will get into some of the specifics, but I want to take a breath to make this point. When I first came on your show, you were, again, one of the first shows I did when I was elected as DNC vice chair. I said to folks then, and I'm repeating now, I didn't run to be vice chair of the DNC because I thought everything was going great. Okay, you don't run if you think everything's going great. You run because you think that there are things that should be changed and that you have something to offer. And I ran because I know that we need to change how the Democratic Party does business. And we have to be a party that gets back to telling people every single day how we're going to make their life better. And I wish we had an entire team at the DNC who was focused on doing that. And the work that it requires to do this is a team sport. David doesn't want to play a team sport. And if you don't want to play a team sport, go play golf, okay? But this is a team sport, and he has spent every single day, as I've said, telling mistruths, half-truths, and I have ignored it and just put my head down and done the work. And I'm not ignoring it anymore. I'm going to tell the truth about the lies that he's told. And hopefully, after we tell the truth about what's going on, we can put this behind us and get back to the work of centering the fact that there are people who are going to wake up in a couple of weeks and not have any money on their food stamps card, not be able to keep their loved one in the long-term care facility that they're in, and are going to send their kids to schools next year that don't have counselors and librarians and coaches because they cut Title I funding. And I wish David had spent all this time talking about those things, but instead he spent all this time talking about himself. And so now I'm also talking about him.
Well, you can't have a profile where you can make money, Malcolm Kenyatta, unless you do the algorithm thing, which is to spur controversy, put out. I mean, it's the playbook, and it's right.
I've learned that.
It's playbook, right? But how do we change the playbook? Well, those of us who are the people, we the people, have to make our voices heard. Nebraska made a decision
because
people showed up,
and a brother too. Very exciting.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I feel like there's a new day. I think people are tired of it. I'm glad you're calling them out. I don't like the fight that infighting, but I hate untruths, right, with a passion, and I also hate people capitalizing off of a moment. And this whole my hackles went up when he said the Democratic Party's ignoring, the loneliness of white men, and I was like, what? Yeah, you haven't gotten a white male vote since Johnson. I think Lyndon Baines Johnson was the last person to get the white male vote. The last one. Texan, who used the N-word, didn't really like black people, got white people to vote for him. That was the last Democratic president, last Democrat at the highest office to get the white vote. It ain't coming back. They have made their case. So the only thing that I think the Democratic Party needs to do is double down on the people that brought you, that have always been there. Stop playing over here in our faces, because it's disrespectful, first of all. And you're disenfranchising the very people that you need to build your party on. Build your party on this rock.
And we have to give folks the respect of not only coming to folks like the Karen Hunter show, which reaches so many people, but of going everywhere. But let me put a bow quickly, because people I know are saying, Malcolm, well, you didn't tell us what's happening. So I'm gonna put a bow quickly on what's happening. Okay, so we had an election. Okay, there are 3 at-large vice chairs. Our rules prescribe that they have to be balanced from a gender perspective. So what that means is 1 woman, 1 man, and 1 person, either male or female. And so we elected the woman as the race went on. Okay, we elected her. Boom. Next, we needed to elect the man and the person of any gender. Because the meeting had gone on so long, the members basically said, instead of voting one at a time, can we vote for the final 2 positions together? Okay. As I mentioned, got 289 votes. You needed 201.5. It's 0.5 because the Democrats abroad only get a half a vote by our rules. So that's the 0.5.
Oh, okay. I was like, are we doing 3/5 a person?
No.
I was like, what is happening?
Because they're only in the country half a year. So that's the way we do it. So they're 0.5 of a vote. So you needed 201.5. I got 289 votes. David squeaked in with 214.5 votes. And we were elected on that same ballot. There was another person who ran in the race who effectively argued that there should have been a 3rd ballot. After I won, there should have been an additional ballot. And because David and I were elected on the same ballot, she made the argument that we should throw the whole thing out and redo the election. The Credentials Committee, I disagreed with her. As I mentioned to you, we all agreed in real time to do it the way that we did it. The Credentials Committee didn't agree with me, said that the parliamentarian who approved that made the incorrect decision. They have called for a new election. People understand. I am, like everybody else, a human who won my election in an overwhelming fashion. Am I pissed that now I'm being asked to run again after getting the most votes of anybody who ran for vice chair? Yes, I'm pissed. But I also recognize that, listen, they made a decision. Evidence was brought, arguments were made, they made a decision. And, I can announce here on your show that, I welcome that new election. I welcome the opportunity to talk yet again, not only to the DNC, but to talk to Democrats everywhere about how we build this party. Now, let me just make 2 final points about David's lies and what really got me upset. This challenge brought by the person who lost the election was filed in February. Because of the timeline, you have to bring the challenge, right? And then we get a certain number of days to respond. She gets a certain number of days to respond to our response. And all those things, it's boring, but it drags out the process. And so that means that a challenge she made in February was not heard until May. David's first press release out was, see, the DNC is hypercharging something to get me out. And then he had the, nerve and the audacity after sending out that
Wow.
press release to send me a text message and say, "Oh, hey Malcolm, I'm so sorry you got caught up, in this. Let's talk soon." And I responded to him to basically,
Ah,
say, how dare you try to text me privately and say you're so sorry, and then publicly you're lying about the timeline and making yourself the victim in a scenario where you were never, the victim. Listen, as a Black man in America and in this country, I know exactly what it means to live in a country and to be in a party that doesn't always love me back. But I decided to take on this role because I know what we can be. And because I know at the end of the day, if we are going to stop fascism, if we are going to stop all the things that I laid out, we need a strong Democratic Party. And I welcome the opportunity to take on the hard work to do that. And that is what I have done for 103 days. And 103 days since I've been in this role, I've traveled over 20,000 miles for this party, been to 8 states, held over 3 dozen events, including multiple fundraisers that I'm not even including in the events. David Hogg has spent his time going on, TV, bashing the Democratic Party. Now, listen, to be clear, the Democratic Party has reasons that we should be upset, reasons that I'm upset. But spending every day on TV saying we suck is not changing the party. Doing the boring work of changing our rules, the way that Ken has moved forward. And people should understand this. I know that a lot of your listeners don't know Ken Martin, but Ken Martin was literally the person who led the reform package when Bernie and Hillary had their big blow up in the 2016 race. And you had all these people saying the party put their finger on the scale for Hillary. It wasn't fair. Ken Martin is literally the person that brought forward the package to change the way superdelegates are counted at our conventions, to democratize the process. And as chair, he put forward an almost 20, point plan of doing things that structurally change how the Democratic Party does business, including, Karen, giving up his authority to appoint members to critical committees. There's been no chair in the history of this party that has actively said, I want less power and I want people to vote. No chair has ever done
wow.
that. This chair is doing that, and we're not allowed to talk about it because David Hogg has taken everything that we've done and made it some attack on him. And he sat in these meetings with me when this was rolled out, knew that these things like the neutrality pledge had nothing to do with him. He never talked about, doing, the Leaders We Deserve thing at that time. And then he goes out into the press and tells myth truths and half truths.
Hmm.
And as I said, I've said nothing about it for weeks and weeks and weeks, but I'm saying something about it now. And if you are somebody who says, I like that David Hogg is fighting the party, you should also know that David Hogg's not being honest with you.
Okay. I listen. Since you came on the show, I've been checking you on social media, and you've done exactly what you said you were going to do, which is to inform us. So the Omaha race on your page, and you can go to Malcolm Kenyatta on Twitter and Blue Sky, wherever you get your social media. Pennsylvania, your state, you said they can pass a budget that doesn't fund mass transit. End of story. Today I joined a massive rally. So you're out there in the streets telling people where you are. You put these little postcards out. Every day you've been banging information and inspiration and also telling us what the next thing is. That's the job that you should be doing, and you're doing the job. And to your point, I feel like David Hogg has used the DNC as a launch pad for his personal venture. The Leaders We Deserve, the that he has put forward, with Maxwell Frost. I think he's part of this as well. I
don't think
Maxwell
Maxwell.
Frost is part of that.
I don't think he's
Former
directly a
campaign.
part
Oh,
of it.
no, I'm sorry.
I think that he supported him in the past.
Ken Lotta is the former campaign manager of Maxwell Frost. But they
Got
see
it,
how
that's
they
right.
even try to attach themselves to somebody that we think is dope, maybe. Okay. But yeah, so he's out there pushing this and then, casting aspersions to the older members. Today, I wanted to uplift one of our Jersey Congress people who is going hard in the paint right now, Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman. She's 80 years old. She's from Jersey, but she is not to be messed with. Okay.
Listen, I just want to say, do not mess with Bonnie Watson. I'm just telling everybody. Don't mess with her.
So this can't just be about putting old people out the past, when they're doing the work. I love the work that you're doing. And if I
I
didn't, I would
appreciate
tell you.
that.
You already know, back
I
door,
know you
front
will.
door. Yeah, I'm
And
that
and, and
person.
and that's what we need, right? You know, Ken says this often, and I'm going to repeat it. You know, if I have something in my teeth, tell me I have something in my teeth, and I mean that about the party. But even for folks who are listening, who say, you know, the party doesn't listen, we finally elected some people who are listening, and I want people to not hold the Democratic Party in stasis, right? You know, you've had people say, well, Malcolm, you're calling for neutrality, but what about 2016? That was a decade ago. I had nothing to do with the DNC in 2016. But what I'm saying now is when we have this next primary, we shouldn't have 8 people sitting in a room trying to pick our nominee. Voters should pick our nominee, and we should trust voters, you know, to pick our nominee. But I do want to make this point about leaders we deserve. I have no issue with with David or anybody else trying to get whatever types of candidates they want, young candidates, black candidates, white candidates, whatever you think we need. That's why we have a primary process, for you to go out there and make that point. And I think what a part of what he's been able to get away with is people assume and people conflate multiple parts of the Democratic infrastructure as one thing, right? So the DNC is not the DCCC. And your listeners, I know that you are all, you know, you come here to be educated, and it's important that you be educated. The DCCC is the arm of Congress, the members of the House, where their entire job is to just elect members of the House. And so, yes, they weigh in on primaries because they want to protect the people who are already in the House. That's their job. The DSCC is focused on just electing members to the Senate. Yes, they weigh in on primaries because they're trying to bring back the people who are there. The DNC sits above all of that. And a part of the reason we need to stay out of primaries is because we are the keepers of so much of the Democratic infrastructure, right? We are the people, when you go and want to knock on doors and you want voters' information, their names, right? We call that van. We control that. And so if the DNC is not fair and you're an upstart candidate who say, I do want to primary somebody, do you want the DNC saying, well, we're not going to let you have the voter file because you're primarying somebody? Or do you want the DNC to say, we're going to give the voter file to all Democrats and let Democrats go out and make the case to voters? And then we're going to respect the choice of voters and work to beat the Republicans. So our job is to focus on November. It's the job of everybody else to focus on the primaries. And it's important that in this big, messy infrastructure, that people can say, you know what, there's one group that was even-handed and was fair. It's our job to be even-handed and fair. David was not forced to become a vice chair of the Democratic Party. He chose to become a vice chair of the Democratic Party. He knew the trade-offs that implies, and now he's acting as if he's being victimized with those trade-offs. I'm an elected official. And when I won, I had to say to my colleagues, some of whom are my actual friends, not just my political friends, some of these people are my actual friends. And I had to say to them, hey, I'm in this new role. I can't endorse you in your primary because I'm in this new role where now I need to be fair. And they understand, and he understood. You have not heard the Democratic Party say, we don't want collective plaque, which is electing black folks. We don't want Emily's List. We don't want Victory Fund, which is electing LGBTQ folks. No, all of those groups serve an important role in the ecosystem, and we need them. But those groups should not be leading the DNC at the same time. And that's the only point that's being made.
The problem that I think the Democratic Party has, the Republican Party right now, is MAGA. It's real easy. You know what they stand for. The Democratic Party is a big tent. It's people from all walks of life with different kind of views. Everybody's got their agenda. You could be pulled 50 million different ways. I mean, Bernie Sanders ran as a Democrat, which, you know, adjacency can run into MAGA at some point. It's a wild party. And so you're juggling a lot of different people, which is why even having the three-headed, you know, vice chair situation was to serve as many people as possible. This
That's
is
right. That's
about
exactly it.
changing the dynamic of a party that, you know, in many ways I look at as stuck. And now we're trying to get unstuck with some nonsense going on. Let me take one call. I know you have to run. John in North Carolina wants to say something. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. You're on with Malcolm Kenyatta. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Malcolm, I really appreciate the work that you do, and I've admired you for quite some time. I believe, or it appears to me, I could be incorrect, but it appears to me that David is trying to position himself to be the king maker. He wants to be the one to pull the strings and call the shots and have the authority to do the majority of the things. And I'm just uneasy with him. I really, really am. He doesn't come across as being honest. That's all I got to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I listen. I really appreciate you saying that, and let me respond by saying this because, Dr. Hunter, it goes really to what you said about what the Democratic Party stands for, and I want to give you 3 words for what the Democratic Party stands for and what you're going to hear me saying everywhere I go. We want to make life better for folks. That's what the Democratic Party is about, making life better. And when you look at what we've experienced in the last 104 days under Trump, he's done nothing but make life worse. And even the corruption that is so insidious has not, I mean, does Trump getting a $400 million palace in the sky plane, does that make life better for you? Or would it make life better to actually fund the FAA, and on and on and on? So the list goes on. And I think that's what we have to focus on as a party. So I want to thank you, Karen.
I want to thank you because I called, you came, and that's what we expect. You answered the questions. You took a call. Go out and do the work that you were elected to do. And if you got to have a new election, you'll get the votes again. Malcolm, thank you.
Experience Karen Hunter
In a completely different way.
Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're going to love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of The Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.